This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
So my name's Kalani Thomas. The company that I run is the Help Desk Sales. And before I get too deep into this, is everyone in here familiar with what a sales coach is? Any idea? Okay. So I basically get paid by companies to help them accelerate their sales and profits and revenues through just working with their sales teams and anyone who's responsible for building the business, biz dev, you name it, customer service in some teams, things like that. So I've actually been doing this now full time for about 3 or 4 years now, right at there. I've been doing this part time now for about 8 years. And in the time I've been doing this, I've trained about 4,000 salespeople. And this is my 4th time I've basically reiterated the sales coaching business model, because if anyone understands this business model, there's a couple things that are inherently wrong with it. And I listed them up here and I'll kind of talk through them. But first and foremost, you can't really scale. I was talking to someone else in here who's a consultant, and he said right now he's got 2 customers, because that's all you can do at any given time is 1 or 2 customers at the most. And the acquisition itself is difficult and expensive because you got to spend a lot of time learning. You got to figure out where they were, where they are now, where they plan on going, all of the information that you need to be able to digest to sort of coach them to that next level in the business. And coaching is not cheap. On average, a sales coach at the start of their career will charge about $500 a month for their services, and what you're getting for that is about 2 hours worth of coaching time. That's about it. The average coach across the country charges about $3,500 a month for their services on at least a 6-month contract. So just to get better at sales, you've got to be able to swallow a $20,000 to $40,000 pill. That's pretty hard to be able to do. So what I've done is I've started to iterate that, and I found some solutions for this. And one of those solutions is to stop doing things in person and to move to a digital coaching methodology. So to move to a platform, a SaaS, something like that. I need to maintain a constant list of warm prospects, and that's where this becomes difficult, is how do I be able to get in front of a lot of people very, very quickly, sell my services, and get retained for this fee that we're charging now. There's a limited time that needs to be spent learning the business. I can't spend days and weeks and months learning what the brand is currently doing to be successful. I need to be able to minimize the amount of time I'm spending doing that. I need to reduce the barrier to entry of cost well below that threshold that it's at today of even $500 for a new person, right? And by doing that, I also need to increase the benefit of the service. At $3,500, and this is what I've been charging customers for 2 years of doing the service, I had a company last year that did $350,000 in revenue, and we only collected $60,000 because no one wants to pay the fees. They want the help, they want to sign up, they want to get contracted, but they don't want to pay. So I started to solve these things, and I said, what are the 2 that I can't actually solve? And it's these here, right? I can't solve a constant warm list of prospects, and I can't solve limiting the amount of time it takes to learn things. So how do I introduce myself to a market where that sort of solved for me? And so I started looking at what I've had experience in working with over the last 8 years, and that's been franchises, okay? So what I'm doing now is I'm actually coaching franchises, and what their main problem is they have limited exposure to the day-to-day of the sales teams that are in the field. There's one franchisor at corporate, 10 to 15 people work there. There's 2,000 franchises in the system. They don't have time to know what the Tallahassee location's doing versus what the Charlotte location versus the Austin location is doing. The exposure is just not there. They have limited resources for training and locations. A lot of times it's one regional person working with up to 50 franchisees, so they can dedicate about a week of each year to actually helping that location succeed. And that's done just like a coach is done in 15, 20, 30-minute conversations that hopefully impact that person's business. Okay? Franchisees have limited support help from corporate doing this sort of stuff, and they have limited support that allows them to sort of delegate these high time management related tasks like onboarding employees and that sort of stuff, okay? So what the solution was for their problems is actually the same solution to how I scale as a coach, right? I don't need to learn every single small business within a franchise system. I just need to learn the brand. If I know how the brand's successful, now I've got 500 locations I can reteach that to at a much smaller fee without having to increase my cost of learning, right? So we're able to build out all locations and territories into a piece of technology that starts to actually reduce the anecdotal data that's happening with the sales. We start to put real data to what it is that they're doing. We actually create content that's specific for that brand, taking into account what they're already using. A lot of systems have sales models. We iterate that model, help them perfect it, help them build training modules behind it. And then we basically roll this out to the entire system. And what we're doing is just helping them grow and run their business. We've patched together a couple technologies, so I call it the help desk because that's exactly how it operates. Just like if your computer breaks, you can send in a ticket, call someone. If your revenue breaks, you can send in a ticket, you can call someone, right? So if you don't know where to go next, now you do. You have someone you can talk to directly. So we're using a couple different technologies, and we've made ourselves sticky to the system by actually taking on the cost of their CRM and including that in the service. So this way they don't get rid of us, they don't get rid of their CRM, they keep the CRM, they keep us. It works pretty well. So the services are one-on-one coaching, custom training curriculum, that sort of stuff, and all we're charging for the service itself monthly is $119. That's it. Cancel anytime. Okay. Definitely happy to take questions. That's the gist of what we're doing. I could definitely get into the stuff way, way more, so any questions I'm happy to go through.
All right, Panos, he wants to get into it way, way more. Let's hear it.
I'll go first. It's good presentation. I don't know if you were here for the first presentation, but you were kind of a flip-flop. You hooked me really well, and then you lost me with too much detail. You've got too many slides, and you've got too much material for 5 minutes, and it's just you got to be conscious of that. But you did very well at hooking me. Like, I understood the problem. I mean, I don't think it's just because I sort of grew up in sales. I think that you described the problem and fairly quickly, and I was waiting for the okay, and I was thinking ahead. I'm like, okay, so he's created a sort of a help desk, which is great because I know that the problem with sales training is it's not you can go and you can fire up a whole room full of people, but then it doesn't make its way into the process, and there's no follow-up. And so I thought you had sort of figured out the problem of how to kind of multiply you, and I think you maybe have done that, but I don't know because you were talking so fast because because the thing was dinging. But if you could tailor your content for the 5 minutes,
right.
and if you could keep the momentum that you had in the first 2 minutes, and go right into the here's the problem and here's the solution. I think you probably have something in there. Mm-hmm. Your presentation style. Obviously you're coaching salespeople. You're very clear and direct and all that part's great. But I would fix that problem.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that, and I can speak directly to it. That's exactly what I've done, is found a way to take my previous knowledge of corporate America, because I worked for a business for 6 years that sold marketing services and small business support to franchises. So I know exactly what that service model is, and under that model, I can actually bring in a service person, and I can service about 350 to 400 locations per one service person right now. So I'm actually taking on partners right now. There's actually some funding that's already coming into the business. There's a couple things we're doing, but essentially I can scale the business out with just 2 or 3 employees and make $1 million a year at that price point on only 700 customers, which right now I'm only being used by about 20 to 25% of the customer base on a monthly basis. Everyone else just pays because they want to say they have help and they can reach out to someone, but they don't necessarily always want to do it. So that's the nice benefit of doing this.
What's the feedback been from your customers to date?
So I actually have 2 franchise groups that have signed up for this. This product's been live 45 days. Okay. I don't want to say this has been around for a super long time. I've been a coach in the area for 2 years, and so I've got a business that is working today and making money. This is my switch from that $3,500 fee to something more accessible. One system is a mobile repair company. They have 41 locations. Another is a senior care company. They have 293 locations. I'm rolling out with the 293 locations in August. The customers that are currently working with me actually got a discounted fee from corporate because I did some work with the franchisor as well, so they pay $89 a month. And the one I was working with yesterday said her and her husband sat down and they want to find a way to pay me more because it doesn't make sense how I can do what I'm doing for $89 a month. So that's been pretty decent as far as what it is we're doing. But because we're tracking everything, at the end of the month I'm generating reports and saying, here's how many conversations we had, here's what the conversations were, here's what your number one objection was, here's the stuff we're using to solve it. So now the owner of that franchise can say, I know clearly how to go forward.
So what are you looking for? Maybe you said it in the beginning and I missed it. Are you looking for money? What are you looking for?
So an investment would be great. The problem I have is I'm looked at as a service-based lifestyle brand, so it's not like I'm really a tech acquisition or anything like that. I'm kind of operating as SaaS right now, but in a go gadget me as a service kind of way, that I've just bought a bunch of software and I do it all behind the scenes. It's not really an actual platform. So I'm looking for money to sort of build it into a platform and take it off all of these other technologies that I'm sort of chained to right now, build my own stack, and to be able to have money for executive support, because like I said, I need a partner to do some of these things, bring in salespeople. So I'm looking for about 300 grand at the end of the day, but that'll keep me afloat for 2 years without taking on a single customer, and that's not been the sort of way it's trending today. We're taking on more than I can handle right now.
So you're like, you're beginning revenue right now with this?
Yeah, so my business itself on the year's done about 30 grand. This product itself has only been about 6 grand of that, but like I said, we've been live 45 days. We're getting some help from the franchisors that are coming in and saying, hey, we want you to show us what you're doing, work with us, help build sales support for us at the franchise level, and then we'll let you work down with the franchisees. And that's been great because I can acquire a $1,000, $1,500 a month customer before I ever even do any work, and then work with them and prove that it works, and then they start blasting it to franchisees as, hey, you got to talk to this guy. So.
Right.
The only question I have with my limited experience in franchisees, and it sounds like you have more experience, but you get a little bit of this whole franchisor, franchisee. The franchisees don't like to have the franchisor pushing down pieces. So how do you manage that? How do you think through your acquisition strategy? Maybe, like, it sounds like, one of the franchisees that you're dealing with is it could be a brand ambassador. How are you thinking about managing that dichotomy that I've seen in the franchise world?
That's a great question. So we've actually tiered the service specifically to help with that. And I didn't go through it, but I have it here. Essentially, every franchise has people that just started and definitely need the help, want the help. The average franchisee is a retired executive, socked away some money, and is used to being able to send an email to someone like me to have all their problems solved anyways. So they're a perfect customer for this. We can help them achieve those first initial milestones and basic training stuff. Then for the people in the middle that have been around a little while, they've made a little bit of money, they just need help with business development, going to that sort of next level from there. The service there, that's really where the heavy lifting is and the hard piece is, because that's where I do have to do a little bit of learning on each ticket that comes in, instead of just saying, oh, you've been around 3 months, have you done this on the trail to success yet, right? Then the last one's just onboarding support. The successful franchisees that are making the most money, they're not going to listen to anything corporate says. They're not going to do anything corporate says to do. But what I've found, what they're really happy to have is like, hey, every month I've got to bring on a new person, or every 3 months I've got to bring on a new team of people. If you could just be there to train those people for me, I could have 6 hours of my month back, and that's worth the $100 to me. So that service person that's sitting around has the opportunity to do this sort of stuff as well.
It's a good audience. Who's got questions? Yes.
Ryan, you might have touched on this earlier, but you mind talking about your pricing strategy? You said it's a lot lower than what you currently charge.
Yeah.
How did you get to that number? Why does it make sense?
So I actually started at a much lower price point. I started at $49, and what I wanted to do was lower the price of my service so low that people just signed up for it to try it, because that's really all you need as a coach. If you're good at your job, is just to get people in the door. You can keep them once they're there. And that got to be a little bit of a logistic nightmare, because I was actually charging $49 on a per person I was coaching basis. So one franchise with 10 people was paying me a much higher fee than a location with 2, but they were receiving the same net benefit. So I switched it to $69 a month for the entire location, and then I basically ran into issues when scaling that it basically cut my margins down to about 50%, which just isn't going to work. But at this 119 level, I'm actually able to service accounts on a monthly basis for only $18 to $28 a piece, depending on which CRM they choose. So the margins on this product, roughly 70 to 75%, until I get about 3 service people on and about 700 customers, and it drops to about 60.
The competing services charge how much for that?
The competing service next to this one right now is another company with a very similar name. I'll let you figure it out on your own. But they charge $699 a month for the same thing and require a 6-month contract. So this is a huge disruption to not only that, but the come hang out with me in a hotel conference room on a Saturday for 4 hours for $199, and I'll give you a workbook you can take home with you. This replaces that model as well. Answer your question?
Yeah, only thought is why not charge more?
Because I don't want people to feel like they need to use it. Right now, I've got 25% of my customer base using it on a monthly basis. So right now, I've got bandwidth to basically be making more money per customer because some of them just aren't using it. I've got a guy that's paid $119 for the 2 months he's been involved in the service. He's never returned an email to me or placed a phone call back to me at all. But his credit card keeps going through, so that's ideal because I don't have to actually talk to him, but I can make the money, right? So it very well might actually be that the price is
Phoenix,
down.
Phoenix, what is it?
Because again, I want this to be
The
one of those
online
passive purchases on
university
every
model.
small business franchise's card. They pay
Sign everybody up and hope
$49
they
for their
don't come.
LinkedIn and they pay $69 for this or something like that. That would be ideal.
We have another question over here. Panelists? Nope, you, okay.
So have you thought about a tiered subscription structure? So you have different parts of the training. Why not for the one who wants to pay $600 to use Bloods, you let them pay it, but also for the one who's not sure and only needs maybe one part of what you offer to have a $69 one. So you just, because that would free you up too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I want the service to be beneficial at the end of the day is what I want more than anything. And the benefit people really get is working with me and the people I train to do what I do. I'm not Sandler trained or Carnegie trained, or I don't have a formal sales education underneath me. I've just been in sales for 18 years and punched $120 million through a cash register, so I have a pretty darn good idea what I'm doing. And I just teach people how to sell without the traditional model of get in an argument, win the argument, make money. It's 2016. You can go to the computer and buy without ever having to talk to a salesperson. I'm going to be eliminated unless people like me step in and show you how to do it today, right? So that's exactly what I'm here for.
I like your passion.
Yeah, I'm a sales obsessed. I put it in the first slide, and I'll go back to it just because it's funny to be able to see, but I consider myself a sales philosopher. I'm absolutely obsessed with this stuff. This is all I've done for 18 years. My dad died 2 days before I turned 14. My mom said, we need more money. And I said, I can sell newspapers after school. And 2.5 years later, I was running a team of 32, making $75,000 a year as a salesperson in high school. I was like, okay, I figured it out. This is what I'm doing.
That's good. Now you should tell
Don't
us.
be afraid to say
Yeah,
that.
use that story.
Again,
Use that.
I've got 5 minutes. I
There's
can
the
talk
pitch.
up here
Yeah.
about myself for a very long time. But
Yeah.
it's the help
Draw us
desk
in.
sales. I'll stick around afterwards. I got business cards. I'm happy to talk with anyone, and I do free consultations as well. So thank you very much, guys.
Jeffrey, thank you.